Anthropic went after enterprise.
But the strategy was the key, and people started using Claude more and more.
They're basically becoming competition to a lot of these.
The market is endless.
It only took OpenClaw a few months to figure that out as well.
One thing breaks, it doesn't break your whole life.
Welcome to Deep Moat, the podcast about building unfair advantages in the age of AI.
Anthropic has finally passed OpenAI in ARR, annual recurring revenue. They've now gotten to 30 billion a month in April. Not a month, in ARR, right? So what do you think about that? So basically, they started with two very different strategies. Anthropic went after enterprise clients and customers initially, and OpenAI went after the consumers. And they've gotten a lot of users, but not quite as much revenue. At least, Anthropic is starting to speed things up and catch up and even surpass them right now. Why do you think Anthropic started to win here?
It sounds like they really picked the right strategy, right? They really focus on the enterprise clients instead of end users. So these are the companies who are willing to pay, and that must show at their bottom line. So it's the difference in strategy. Now, OpenAI is trying to catch up a little bit, so it might be an interesting race moving forward because the numbers are so close to each other, 30 billion versus 25 for OpenAI. But the strategy was the key, and people started using Claude more and more, and that's definitely the direction the industry seems to be going.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens throughout the year, mainly because the new Codex, the new GPT 5.5 has gotten a lot of positive reviews. The download rate has exploded for Codex. So it seems that there's at least a minor trend where a lot more people, a lot more developers are starting to use Codex right now. And the usage of Claude Code is starting to decline a little bit. But, these things are kind of in cycles. So, if Anthropic releases a new model, a new Claude Code version that, it's much better, I'm sure a lot of them will switch back and so on. But yeah, so far it looks like, they're relatively equal. And I think there will be a bit of back and forth throughout the year. They're both supposed to have their IPOs this year. So I'm sure they'll do as much as possible to to appeal to the desires and needs of their users this year at least. Where do you see this going to the next year or after this phase?
Well, I mean, it's been an impressive growth because I think they hit the 30 billion from 1 billion in just 15 months. So I think the trajectory is going to go up because what I see is that even non-technical people are using Cloud Code more and more and more in their marketing efforts and just trying to build little agents to automate their work. And that's a huge market for everyone because once you move from Cloud Code and just simple agent decoding to real workspace usage and automating parts of your job, then the market is endless. People will be willing to spend a lot of money on doubling or tripling their output.
And Anthropic seems to be moving fast in a lot of these areas. First of all, they are moving fast in implementing new features, but also launching new tools like the recent Claude Design, for example. And it seems that they're going after a lot of markets at the same time. I think I saw a recent story about them partnering with a bank, a big bank in the US. And they're trying to offer private equity firms tools basically that they can use for their own companies. So it seems that they're trying to be both to use both a horizontal strategy where they want as many companies as possible to use the Anthropic APIs, the Claude APIs, but at the same time they're going deep vertically into a lot of markets. So they're basically becoming competition to a lot of their clients ultimately.
I think they're trying to experiment, to be honest. They just try to enter any market they can, and they figure out what works and where companies are willing to pay the most money, and then they might go deeper on that. So they try law, they try marketing, and everything imaginable, and they will figure it out. There will be some segments that will be the obvious winners, and they will double down and focus on them, and they will uncover the best growth path.
I agree, and that makes sense. Like, they might launch in 100 different markets, vertical markets, but they're not going to be able to do like a very good job, or maybe they'll do a good job initially and they'll get some users, but ultimately I think a lot of like startups and competitors will appear that will do a much better job, build much better tools for those markets, and ultimately the customers will switch to those tools.
Plus, they say the future is the service as a software model, right? When you not only have the tool, but you also help companies implement it and you work with them on fine tuning it and providing that service layer that helps companies to basically implement your tools much faster. And they can do that, right? They won't be able to just work with millions of companies on the service level. So that's maybe where the opportunity comes, where the companies can actually help everyone integrate it much deeper in their stack.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think OpenAI will start to implement a similar strategy. At least they'll probably try to replicate their enterprise strategy a little bit. You know, like Anthropic focused a lot on Claude Code and getting Claude Code in the enterprise. I think they'll also try now to get Codex in the enterprise, because that seems to be like the biggest growth opportunity for them. And then from there we will see. But they also seem to partner with a lot of companies to integrate their APIs and their technology a lot deeper. So far, like especially since Anthropic released Opus 4.7, which has gotten a lot of, let's say, mixed results, if not even negative, mixed comments, and or if not even negative comments, because they've also had a lot of server issues, like they couldn't fulfill all of the demand they were getting lately. So going to the next story here, it seems that Anthropic made a deal with SpaceX, which recently merged with XAI, to use the Colossus One data center to be able to process all of the Anthropic requests, or additional Anthropic API requests that they get from their users. Uh, what do you think about this recent news? It's an interesting partnership for sure.
Yeah, they seem to be enemies until not that long time ago when Elon Musk didn't really like on the company too much. So it's one of those partnerships when it just makes sense to work together because SpaceX has the capacity and they have the need, so they just merge together and help serve their customers. So it's more like partnership from reasonable sense than necessarily being willing to work together, because until recently, yes, Elon Musk didn't have the best comments about Anthropic. So it's going to be super helpful for us as users, right? Because like we really struggled with the limits lately. Like the functionality was slow, it was breaking down, and the capacity really seemed to be the bottleneck for the company. So now having much more compute and much more GPUs available, hopefully it's going to put us back on the map when we can keep using Cloud Code to its full potential, not being held back anymore.
Uh, yeah, and since they doubled the limits recently because of this deal, so that's definitely good news. It's interesting from Elon Musk's point of view as well, mainly because Grok hasn't been that popular lately, and they've built all of this capacity for Grok and Grok usage. So now they have a lot of available capacity. So they might as well monetize it, right? Just
Yeah.
like Google is doing with its own TPUs and servers. They're serving a lot of these companies, including Anthropic, OpenAI, and they're making a lot of money from it, probably more than they're doing from Gemini directly. So I think it's a good strategy for Elon Musk, for SpaceX as well, at least for now, right? Until we'll see what Grok 5 can do, and if they will need more capacity, maybe they'll
Right.
lower Anthropic's capacity a little bit later.
And they
So
already
we'll
have
see
the
how that goes.
Colossus too, right? So like this is the new version of their data center that's even bigger. And I read that they are using that internally. So I guess the Colossus one was just a little leftover that now they can rent out. But it's gonna be interesting with all the space compute they have planned, and if you actually have GPUs flying around the orbit, then it's gonna be an interesting company in the space. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next story here.
So next we wanted to talk about OpenClaw versus Cloud Code battle. So that's the story that was popular, like very spreading social media this week, that the OpenClaw usage is going down slowly, that people are slowly leaving it for Cloud Code because they realize they can accomplish essentially the same things without all the issues. I know you've been running OpenClaw for many, many months. How do you feel about it lately?
Yeah, and really the reason is it's been so unstable. Like every new update seems to break something, and you end up wasting a lot of time trying to fix it, trying to restore back to a previous version that was working, trying to set up again whatever you had before like before you restored an older backup and lost any new things that you may have set up or configured. So it's been you'll have to spend more time just configuring OpenClaw instead of actually using it.
Mhm.
So I think I've seen a lot of early adopters, like even earlier than I adopted it, say they've kind of given up on it because of these issues. I think the main reason is because they are moving way too fast and breaking way too many things. And this has been basically the philosophy of the founder of OpenClaw. Like, I think right now he's using like 50 agents at the same time to build, thousands of new, minor features into it. And I can just imagine there are so many issues that could go wrong because of that. And there's so little time to do Q&A because they tend to release like 2 new versions a week, right? And because of that, I think they should have like a long-term version, like at least 1 month, like you have with Linux kernel, right? Where you have like a regular version, then you have like a long-term version or other software,
Right.
and have one stable version that it's like thoroughly tested and reviewed. A lot of Q&A for it, and release that like once a month, once every 2 months, and make it stable for everyone, for like regular users, right? And then still have the the normal version that where they're moving fast, for the bleeding edge users, where they want to try all the new features, all the new integrations, with the caveat that it could still break. And I think that's really necessary at this point. So because I'm seeing a lot more people say they want to switch to Hermes, which is like the number one alternative to OpenClaw right now. Or as you said, a lot of regular users, mainstream users are kind of just starting to use Claude Code, Claude Cowork, or Codex.
Do you also think that might be the philosophy that with OpenClaw you're building like one big agent, sort of, that's trying to do it all? So you try to have one interface to run everything, your marketing, your sales, your personal life. But with Cloud Code, what usually people are doing is creating small agent for specific tasks. So they create like an agent that's separate for their marketing, copywriting, or ad management. And then they can separate the problems and it can be more focused. And if one thing breaks, it doesn't break your whole life. It just breaks your marketing, which sucks anyway. But it's better than if it breaks your personal life, your sales and hiring and everything else. So do you think that could be the reason why people are migrating to those tools as well? That they can split into multiple agents?
I don't think that's the reason per se why they are doing it. I think it's actually an advantage that you can have one AI agent that kind of knows everything about what you're trying to do and kind of like be able to integrate across multiple areas and projects. I think there is a real advantage to that, and it's also much easier, at least from my experience, to integrate with different AI models, for example, and have different routing for those. So, like if you want a certain workflow to use Claude and then OpenAI and then Gemini, I find it's much easier to just have something like OpenClaw, and I don't even think it's possible to do this in Claude Cowork, for example. Like unless maybe if you use the new managed agents, I haven't used that. I haven't played with that. But would you be able to use Gemini API inside those workflows, or have you tried it?
I guess it depends how you build it. If you build it like self-sustaining agents that they don't really run necessarily fully in Cloud Code, but they can be just executed from there, then you could technically use things like Open Router and just route it through any model you want. If you build it like skills for Cloud Code, then you are hooked into Claude and you can't switch to anything else essentially. So it depends which approach you choose. I think people combine them. The one benefit is that you don't have like that one point of failure if you have like multiple agents. So if one thing goes wrong, doesn't mean everything dies, but you have a chance to recover from it much easily. And you can fine tune the little things. I personally find it more useful, but I see the value of what you are saying behind the unified interface. So I guess the optimal setup might be having one agent who has a bunch of sub agents that are like highly specialized. So you have that one single interface you talk to, and then you have a bunch of agents that do specific tasks for it. And it's basically an orchestration that could work the best.
I think right now there's too much siloing going on in these tools, like these enterprise tools like Claude, Claude Cowork, and Codex. Like I find a lot of times I would want to transition, let's say, a project from Claude Chat into Cowork. So I might need a task done based on the information I have there, or grab additional information through Claude Cowork computer use, and integrate it into the chats and the projects I had. And I don't think there is any way to do that right now. Like they're completely siloed.
Yeah,
Like
that's a good point.
I don't find that very, very useful. And Codex is not much better. I mean, for Codex, they have only one interface. They don't really separate out, chats from, computer use stuff. But you still don't get access to your ChatGPT chats. So it's kind of the same issue.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And that's something that we really need to figure out how to overcome is having access to everything you need to run your agents in one place instead of having it in 5 different locations, not being able to talk to each other, and then have part of your task in the chat, then part of your task in Codex, and just not being able to cross-reference it. So that's going to be something to overcome. But it should be done through user experience. So that's it's not even a model thing.
I would really prefer a more unified interface, and also the ability to transition to the mobile phone. Like Claude Cowork still doesn't do, it doesn't do a great job at all at that right now. They have like this dispatch feature, but you kind of have to start in the dispatch feature the task in order to be able to use it on mobile. Like to me, it doesn't make sense. Like they have this model of OpenClaw that a lot of people loved. One of the main reasons why it got such high adoption in such a short time. And why didn't they replicate that? And I think the reason is because they want to keep things very locked in, and they don't want to depend on WhatsApp or Slack, and like they kind of want their own. You should only use your Claude mobile app in order to access these. But even that, like I'm surprised they don't have better integration yet. Like, why can't I access all of my chats and Cowork tasks from the Claude mobile app? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why is it limited to that dispatch feature?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, we need to remember that it's been like, 2 months since they started. So everything is like very young environment and they are trying to figure it out, how to make it work. That should be done, right? Like with 30 billion ARR, they should have the resources to get the user experience ready. And it should help them with adoption as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it only took OpenClaw a few months to figure that out as well. And they kind of started that from scratch. But, Anthropic already has the model of OpenClaw. Like, they should just kind of replicate it, as
we'll
close
see.
as possible.
Maybe one day we'll get there.
Yeah. So that's all for this week. Until next time, see you, everyone.
Yeah, see you in the next one.